Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. I'm thrilled to have Katie Gaston with us, Director of Product Marketing at Bloomerang. Katie, I love to bust a big myth, and you're going to help us, aren't you?
I sure am. I am so excited.
It's going to be a lot of fun because we were talking in the green room about donor unicorns, and wow, it's such a pervasive thought, isn't it? It's
Totally.
it's so hard. And so I'm really excited to have you help us reorient our mindset about this. Because if you ask me, Katie, this is a big mindset. And so I'm really excited to dig into this. I'm also very excited that I get to dig in with these concepts because of amazing sponsors like we have Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Holdings Nonprofit Banking, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, Fundraisers Friday, and JMT Consulting. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy, one of the co-hosts on the Nonprofit Show. Welcoming back Katie Gaston, Director of Product Marketing at Bloomerang. Okay, Katie, I got to ask you, I kind of asked you if I could ask this question in the green room. How do you forecast? How do you make observations
hmm
that allow you to kind of fine tune what we should be talking about and what nonprofits should be looking for? That's a big question. We could do that a whole show on that.
I love that question, though. So, when I tell people what product marketing is, I typically say I'm a storyteller.
Mhm.
And to tell a good story, which all of you, we're all in the nonprofit space storytellers. To tell a
Mhm.
good story, you really need to know who you're telling the story to. What are the things they care about, and what is the context or the landscape of that story? So, to know those things, I mean, it takes a lot of time and intentionality. And it takes conversations. So, we within the product marketing team have a lot of conversations with nonprofits, a lot of conversations internally with the staff and the team members who are speaking directly with each of you in our nonprofit community to hear where is your biggest pain point? Where are you
Mhm.
finding success? Where is a nonprofit CRM or fundraising tool or volunteer management really helpful for you at this moment? We do surveys, we do quantitative surveys. So through our product or through, to some individual nonprofits outside of our community, we ask good questions through those, and then a lot of research as well. We look at what's happening in the space. We read publications. We listen to shows just like this in
Mhm.
order to understand what are the hot topics and where can we best support. So thinking of how do you translate that to your storytelling, doing those things with your donors so important, whether that's surveying or speaking with them or just listening actively.
Mhm.
That's how you learn how to tell the best story.
Mhm. It's such an interesting thing because it seems to me like you have to kind of quiet the noise and
Mm,
say, okay, I'm not gonna have like all this frenetic stuff going on.
yep.
And it kind of leads me into the concept of a unicorn and a myth
Yeah.
because it's a chase. So first and foremost, what is this fundraising myth? Let's start there.
Completely, completely. Well, unicorns, they are real in some cases, but they might not be your most opportunistic thing to look for. So, what is a unicorn? Let's define that. Most of the time in nonprofit fundraising, that's your major donor, that
Okay.
really wealthy donor in your community that it's like only if one person knew that individual in our team, that's what we would need. And then we'd be set for this year.
Mhm.
And think about how much time it takes to just focus on that one individual. Well, the interesting thing in this myth, the busting of the myth, is that research shows you will actually raise quite a bit more if you just focus on the donors already in your database, if you have a CRM today. So think of your loyal donors, or think of your ones that are giving on a monthly basis, even if it's $25 or $10 a month, but let's say they've been giving for years, or even your volunteers who you may not think of as potential donors in your network of supporters. Focusing on those, and we'll talk all about what that looks like today and how you can do that really effectively, is much more strategic than just chasing that unicorn.
Right. I think the thing that, so thank you for defining that.
Hmm.
Um, I think the thing that for me, it's so perilous to put all your, as they say, eggs in one basket, and the stress that you have when you get that one big donor. Because if that one big donor goes away, or you might find yourself bending to the arc of their will, or it's just a human nature. Versus if you have a stronger foundation of a
Hmm.
lot of people marching with you, it's not so frightening if you have some surges, some ups and downs.
Completely. Just focusing on that unicorn is in reality, even though it seems like that could be really potential, it's actually a really risky strategy, just like you said. Because when things change, economic climate changes, there's a
Mhm.
lot shifting in the market. Let's say that individual moves to another community, then that fully goes your funding source. So you're right. Let's build that foundation and sustainability. And I think the really exciting thing about this is that many of you probably already have what you need. You just
Mhm.
have to think about how do you use the tools at your disposal to really cultivate it through what already exists in your network.
Okay, so that leads us to my next question, and that is, we're chasing that unicorn. So how
Hmm.
do we stop it and reorient to those donors hiding in plain sight?
Completely. Well, there's a few steps to that. And I think the most important thing as a start to think about, and I know this is really hard as you're working through if you have a CRM or whatever tool you have, but it's clean data. If you don't have clean data, you don't know who's volunteering. You don't know who has actually been giving on a regular basis. And getting tools in place, let's say like a donor CRM, is really important to help with that clean data. But even if you have a CRM, I'm sure that there's so many people listening right now who have, let's say, started at a role and they opened the CRM in their first, new role, and it's like, oh my gosh, and then you close it and you go do something else because the data
Right,
quality is just so bad and all over the place.
right.
So there's also tools. So as an example with Bloomerang, we have nightly NCOA updates, so nightly change of address updates automatically. So automatically your data is clean. So I think it's in addition to thinking about how do you maintain clean data through proper practices, also looking for tools that have some of that automated and built in to reduce the manual work for you to have to go through that process as well.
Right.
Yeah,
It's so interesting, Katie, because I feel like a lot of us think, oh, we get that CRM and we're golden. But what you
totally.
just brought up, it's like garbage in, garbage out concept. If you're not managing it and looking at it, um, it's not going to be that strong of a tool.
Exactly, exactly. So I think the first thing you can do, let's say if you're in a new role, is really look at what tools exist in the CRM. As
Mhm.
an example, not everyone enables those NCOA updates. So you may already have a feature or setting in the tool you're using that helps you do this better, and you might just not know that it exists as an example.
Right. Love that
Um,
comment. That's a
Totally.
great tool. That's a great piece of advice. Because yeah, a lot of times these systems are so sophisticated, and we just look at some very rudimentary things, and we don't really like you use the word enable, but
Mhm,
adopt a mindset for really saying, okay, we're going to make this more complete for ourselves. So we've
mhm,
talked about this myth. We've talked about chasing, donors. We've looked at a piece of, I almost want to say it's like false wisdom that we have
mhm.
in the nonprofit sector. We just need that one big rich lady that, cat lady that's going to help us out, right? And we
Yep.
don't even have cats. So let's bounce back a little bit to AI, as you mentioned. How
Yeah,
do we think about bringing this tool into our systems and navigating this whole process?
completely. Many of you may have tried using AI for something, and we'll talk about cultivation because that's a really important part here of helping you automate or write, let's say, a letter for cultivation. Well, the capabilities of AI are so powerful, and what we're starting to see in the market, I'm going to let you in on a little secret, Julia. We're building something pretty exciting in Bloomerang where AI could actually read your data, not only just understand what's in the database, but also based on years of experience, successful consulting engagements working with clients, recommend what path to take. So I think there's two prongs here, which is, let's say if you don't have a tool, if you're just starting this journey out and you're saying, well, what should I use or what could I do? There are ways that you can safely use AI, such as making sure that it's not training the model. So that's settings as an example in ChatGPT, or paying for some of that and being able to upload some of the data that you have and ask it to read and analyze patterns and provide recommendations for you. My hot tip, which I've been using personally, is you can train an AI so you can save a coach. Let's say your fundraising
Yes.
coach, and work with the data that's in your system. But in the industry, and particularly, let's say with Bloomerang, the thing that we're seeing now is that that's built into the platform. So it's not you having to train the coach, but a company or a vendor like your CRM provider has
Mhm.
built what we know works, playbooks, expert advice into your CRM. And automatically, all you have to do is ask, who are my most loyal donors? Who might I be missing? Who gave, let's say, every month for 5 years or more, which research shows are much better bequest prospects than that one large unicorn in your community.
Right.
Yeah,
I love that you brought this up
yeah.
because Katie, I keep thinking about it's a foundational mindset shift that
Hmm.
says smaller can be just as mighty and so much more
Entirely.
predictable.
Entirely. And research shows not if you just only look at those smaller or more loyal or consistent donors. In fact, Jerry Panis, who is fundraising guru expert, really has influenced and shaped, historically the fundraising space, has a quote that says, "Your best prospects aren't the wealthiest, they're the most loyal." So
Yeah.
with that guidance in mind, looking at who's given the longest or who's given consistently, even if it's not a lot, or who is what would be known as a mid-level donor. So who gives between 1,000 to 5,000 every single year? Because those are your ones who you should be looking at upgrading through cultivation and really getting to that next level. But analyzing that data takes time, which is why
Yeah.
using a tool like AI or looking for a platform that has that embedded and built in is
Mhm.
really strategic as you think about what this next future generation of fundraising is going to look like.
It's so interesting, Katie, because it seems to me, going back to the very start of our conversation,
Hmm.
is that myth and mindset are such a powerful duo. And for
Hmm.
so
Oh,
many,
totally.
I mean, we have these blinders on, and then we believe
Yep.
that these certain things are truths when they are not.
Hmm.
And so this AI issue, it seems to me like it's a shift in how we are taking in information, how we believe information, right? How do we align our credibility to
Hmm.
information that we're getting? And so I've got to ask you this question, and this is like maybe a little like off the wall, but we work in teams, we work with boards, CEOs, C
Hmm.
suites, community leaders that all share this myth. How do
Hmm.
we break free individually? Do you just make that decision and then you're just like, I'm going to gut it out? Or do you have to
Yeah.
bring people along? Do you see where I'm going with this?
Oh, I do. And I love the question. So, two parts, which is one, I think what you just said about mindset and myth go together. I think
Hmm.
that's really, really important. In fact, we have a saying in Bloomerang that's more leads to more. So when you think of that, if you think I don't have enough, there's not enough donors, or there's not enough, or I need more, if I'm operating from a place of trying to figure out what doesn't exist today, then you might be thinking of that mindset, and that propagates down to your point, to your board. If you shift that and say, I actually have everything I need right now, we just have to think about how to cultivate what we
Mhm.
have today better, and find those donors, that's the key. So to your question specifically about boards, I think actually this is where a really polished AI tool can also come in handy. Um, if you present data to someone and you say, look, we've had this donor who has given this amount of times over a period of time, and rather than you having to look through your CRM manually, which could take hours, which we know you don't have, just asking a chat that's embedded in a tool, or if you don't have that, using an AI outside and having it help analyze some of that data and presenting that and saying, look, there's a lot of opportunity we already have. Let's give it a shot. I think the other thing that's really helpful, so as an example, we have consultants that speak regularly within Bloomerang. And I think a story that I heard recently was uh, uh, one of our consultants was working with a nonprofit, and they had a donor. They never had looked at their data to see who was their longest donor. And they
Oh,
had a donor that had given, I want to say 20 plus years.
wow.
And that showed them they totally changed their perspective. They began nurturing and building a relationship because they hadn't engaged with that donor because it wasn't a high value gift amount. And at the end of as she moved on, they received a very large bequest gift from that donor specifically because they looked at the data. So I think it goes back to where we started the conversation, which is your data clean?
Yeah.
And what tools, there's so many tools that exist through AI today that can help you pull out those hidden nuggets and present the case to your board.
Yeah, I love that because I think that is that helps the normal group
Hmm.
understand that ending that chase is okay.
Totally.
Stopping that belief that you just need that one person that's going to save you,
Mhm.
which is a fool's errand. And I don't know why we talk about this. I hear this from nonprofits all the time. If I
Yeah.
just get that one big donor, and it's like, wow, it's such an interesting shift in how we all
Mhm.
think, and it it's so pervasive. Okay, let's talk about this, and we're going to call it the art, because there is an art
Yeah.
to the automated multi-channel journey. So we understand now that we have to really value our data. We have to work it. We have to continually engage and learn. And that means maybe shifting some of our own mindsets. So
Hmm.
then how do we think about this multi-channel journey? And maybe start with what is a multi-channel journey?
Completely. That sounds really complicated, but it's really not. So, uh, the example I would give is we all have friends in our life that are really good at following up. They're the friends that send a card every birthday and you remember them because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, no one sends cards nowadays. And you've got this friend that always sends you a birthday card. And then they
Mm,
call you, let's say, every other month. And they're the ones that are always reaching out and trying to grab coffee. Well, relationships take time to build, and there's no difference if you're building a relationship with a donor that, again, using the data, you've said, this is a really interesting donor in my database already that I can cultivate. So a
mhm.
multi-channel journey is a donor journey is moving them from stage to stage. So from first time gift to that second gift to becoming a reoccurring donor to a mid-level donor. And as you move them up, maybe you'll find potential major unicorn donors already in your database by just cultivating
Yeah.
them. And multi-channel means different ways of communicating. So if you just send an email and that's the only channel, that's a marketing term that you're using today, it probably won't resonate as much as mixing up an email. Or we actually, hot off the press as well, tomorrow or 2 days from now, we're building a tool in Bloomerang, sorry, that you can record a video directly from your mobile device and send it as a thank you to the donor. So as soon as you get that first time gift, you say, oh my gosh, this was super valuable. And they get a first time thank you within 48 hours. Or, so we've talked
Love
about,
it.
email, video, text message, all of those tools that you could use. Now, building what that looks like is there are tools that exist, such as, in Bloomerang, where you can automate a step-by-step journey as soon as you get that first time dinner giver. So
Yeah.
research shows if you thank a donor within 48 hours, they are 4 times more likely to give. So those first 48 hours are absolutely critical. What if you just built a automated sequence, would be a
Mhm.
term, where immediately as someone gives, let's say you wait maybe 2 or 3 hours and they get an email thanking them. So you know that you hit that first milestone. And then maybe you wait, let's say a week, and you send them a text about how much their gift mattered. And
Mhm.
then you send, let's say 20 days later, a newsletter about all of the great work you're doing. I'll tell you, I have given quite a bit to a variety of nonprofits just in my community. And if I had a nonprofit that followed up that consistently, I would give again and again and again. And that's really what the data shows. But remembering to do that takes a lot of time. So, I think one of the things that we'll talk about today is you were in October, you're already thinking, how do I capitalize on my year
Yeah.
end fundraising? But I would challenge that thought and say, how do you capitalize on raising most in December, but keeping it up in January? And if
Right.
you invest even 3 to 4 hours now to build one of those sequences, um, it'll be massively impactful for you as you look towards, your next year fundraising goals as well.
Right. Okay. So let's dig into that in our
Yeah.
final minutes because um, sometimes, and I'll witness to you, even on the nonprofit show, I feel like I start to temper what my messages are and if you will, our
Mhm.
guest editorials, like who we're putting on the show,
Mhm.
because it's such a stressful time for our community. Sometimes I feel like I don't want to stress them out more by giving them more
Totally.
tasks when they're just like so freaked out, to put it
Yep.
bluntly. But you have a really interesting way to look at this. So let's dig into that because I really like your approach here. So
That sounds
the
great.
yeah, so the year-end blueprint, it's not just for the year end, is it?
No, by no means. Your year-end blueprint is if you invest even a couple hours of work now, not thinking about how do I raise just another gift in December, but you think about it again, thinking of that sustainability or the foundation building. How do I invest a little bit of time now to actually save me more time later? So, spending a few hours building something like an automated sequence through, there's a lot of tools you can do this if you don't have a CRM. You could look at a marketing automation system, or you could even look at, a variety of tools to help build some structure in. But that will pay back massively as you think about the first time donors you're going to get in December, or those donors that are giving for tax season in order to get it in before the end of the year. Well, that's
Yeah.
a touch point. They interacted with you. How do you capitalize on that engagement again as a relationship point and keep it going? Because next year you'll look back and you'll say, "Oh my gosh, those 4 hours I invested October 21st, let's say next week, really made a difference." In
Mhm.
terms of hitting my goals, not just this year, but really next year as well.
Right. I
Yeah.
love that you've kind of drawn a line through the calendar because I do think a lot of times we just rush to December 31st and then we're just like trashed or we're just like we can't even think about the next year, which is like such a bad way to start out, right? As opposed to saying this is the journey, we're going to keep
Mhm.
going. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's so I really, really like again, it's another shift in mindset.
Yeah, maybe it's as simple, if you don't feel like, "Oh my gosh, I don't have the time to do all these journeys," and that feels really stressful, maybe you just plan, look, anyone that's a first time donor, we're going to do a volunteer event where if you have volunteers for your nonprofit, where they can engage in January. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to thank them and we're going to invite them to volunteer. But just think about what's that next step in their journey so you don't lose the momentum that you are definitely going to get in the next few months.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that you said that because I think we forget the goodwill and um, that sense of change and optimism that a new
Hmm.
year brings culturally, right? It's
Hmm.
from losing weight to getting healthy to being more, a better citizen, whatever the heck it is, right?
Totally.
That's a
Yeah.
time where we socially, you know, it it leaks across all levels of society, right?
I
And so
didn't even think about that, but you're
it's happening.
right. I always set New Year's resolutions. If a
Yeah,
nonprofit was to engage with me, I set a New Year's resolution for how much I would give this year in
yeah,
January. I set a New Year's resolution for how much I wanted to volunteer. Like
yeah.
that is an opportunistic time to begin cultivating those donors. So next year's December, you're just gonna blow it out of the water.
Right. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really cool way to, you said something in the very beginning, to listen to those stories, listen
Mm,
to the people that you engage with in a different way, because that could really inform or impact some decisions moving in to the rest of the year. I mean, how many people
totally.
actually pull in their volunteers or um, their new alliances at the first of the year? Not
Completely,
many.
yeah. No, yeah, asking that question of, "I love that you gave. It's going to make such an impact, but help me understand why you gave to us." I mean,
Mhm.
what could you learn just from that question? You could articulate your story. You could learn if there was communication that you sent out that worked, or if the way that your website was designed worked well. There's so many things you could learn by just taking that next step with those donors.
Yeah. And I think too, Katie, we get talked to a lot, but we don't get asked,
Yeah.
to frame what we're doing. And that's
Yep.
really powerful to ask and to then quietly
Listen.
absorb it. You might not always hear things that you appreciate or that you can take into your heart, but you might just get something that's like, wow, really
Mhm.
profound. Yeah,
Mhm.
very, very interesting.
Completely.
Yeah. This the other thing I want to before we end, I want to applaud you on is I love that you have shared with us this mindset and approach of don't try and do it all. Like try and
Yeah.
be thoughtful and make a commitment, maybe just to one thing at a time, so that you don't get overwhelmed. Does that? I mean, those are my words. Is
Oh,
that
completely,
okay?
completely. And yeah, and I think it can be so easy to get overwhelmed. So I think my tips there would be a few things, which is one, use the tools at your disposal. I'm a
Mhm,
big fan. I know that there's some thoughts around AI, around safety and
mhm,
security, but and authenticity. So I would say experiment with, if you haven't, start dabbling your toe in it and see what you can
mhm,
learn from it, because you might be able to actually work a lot faster using a tool like that than where you're working today. So use tools and then choose, to your point, choose one thing. Say, you know what, this year, we want to do just this one thing to try something different and see what happens. It's all a journey, right? It's all a journey for us all as we learn what this new world and fundraising looks like, and give ourselves grace
mhm.
to make sure that we're not too hard on ourselves for having to do it all, to your point.
Exactly, having to do it all.
Yeah.
I would say my lesson from you today is really that 48 golden hour rule, right? You have 48
Hmm.
hours to really do something special. And what that looks like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's so varied. But I think that is very, very powerful. And we know this and we've heard this, but to make that commitment is something
Yeah.
else.
Imagine, before we wrap, imagine if the thing that you did, because I know a lot of you may struggle with getting your board engaged. I've served on nonprofit boards, and I don't know if I've always been asked to fundraise, but imagine if that one thing is assigning each of your board members a week to make those calls. So
Yeah.
when someone gives, your board member is the one that's reaching out and thanking them. In fact, the research shows a board thank you call will actually increase the next gift size by up to 40%.
Mhm.
So use the tools at your disposal, the people and the software tools, to really maximize your opportunity. Yeah.
Right. And I love the board thankathon concept. I
Yep.
think that it's a great way to engage your board members too, because
Mhm.
it feels so good to thank somebody and to hear that feedback. It's such a powerful witness to
Totally.
commitment. And so I think that, I mean, is a huge, huge opportunity. Well, Katie Gaston, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. I love your leadership within your organization. I love your mindset and that you brought this forward to us. We've had a lot of comments come in today during the nonprofit show, and it's really been fun to see how many people have really taken your message to heart, and then been like, yeah, we can do this. And so really exciting. Katie Gaston is the director of product marketing at Bloomerang. And you can learn more about all the work that Katie and her team are doing at bloomerang.com. You can also see they have an updated website and some new branding changes that are really exciting and wow, super powerful. Thank you for kind of giving us the cutting edge and the lead into some of the new products or directions you're taking. This has been really fun.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And thank you all for the work that you're doing in your communities. We wouldn't exist if it wasn't for each of you and the hard work that you put in every day. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very true. We have amazing presenting sponsors, and they allow us to do this work, and they allow so many wonderful things going on across our country and our different communities. Again, Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Holdings Nonprofit Banking, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, Fundraisers Friday, and JMT Consulting. These are the folks that join us day in and day out. A little programming note, we will hit our 1,400th episode on Friday. And so that's Fundraisers Friday, which is apropos. So again, thanks to our sponsors that have allowed us to continue on with this journey. As we end each and every episode of the Nonprofit Show, we leave with this message: to stay well so you can do well.